like she said, we're here to talk business today. And just a little bit more introduction of myself. Cheri Rath. Our family farms south of Aberdeen, and I've worked with the Ag Department, the Economic Development, and then I've actually been here for a number of years. And the center is actually celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. So I can move the slide here. What the center does is its whole intent, we're a nonprofit, and our whole intent is to help producers be able to turn their commodities into a value-added product. So we provide hand-holding services to help you think through and vet the idea, feasibility studies, business planning. We try to keep a pulse on what financial assistance is out there, help with applications, help administer, bring in other resources and whatever it takes, and try to be that hub that stays with you all the way through your project. So that's a brief of who we are. And I will say this, I would like this to be very informal because I hate speaking. And so if you have any questions or thoughts or anything along the way, feel free to just chime up and we'll just have a conversation rather than a presentation.
And as Kirsten said, I work for South Dakota Specialty Producers, specifically on their specialty crop block grants. And what South Dakota Specialty Producers is they offer different marketing, research support, and educational programs to our members. And we have a wide variety of members, including producers, consumers, processors, even local chefs. One of the things that I am in charge of is our subchapters, which includes our Farmers Market Coalition, flower growers, fruit and vegetable growers, and our new mentorship program. And they meet monthly or every so often, and it's a really great opportunity for them to network. If you have any questions about membership, feel free to stop outside at our booth. And even if you aren't a member, I suggest signing up for the newsletter. A lot of our opportunities come through there for everyone, not just members.
All right, so as we talk about our local food system and the different layers of the, I'll move so that you guys can kind of see, so that we talk about the different layers of the food system that there are. Anything from growers creating the meats, the fruits, the vegetables, the honeys, all of that type of thing, into the processors, whether it's just cutting up carrots or making salsa or whatever, into aggregating and distribution, which there's not a whole lot of that in the state yet, but we're working on it. The aggregating is trying to come together, instead of you just being independently responsible for getting all of your stuff to market and everything, it's maybe bringing things together, doing collective distribution, maybe aggregating so that you can build a bigger market, so that it's not just you can go into the institutions because now you have 100 pounds of tomatoes rather than 10 pounds of tomatoes. So that aggregation piece, and then the marketing portion. And again, that could be individual, that could be coming together to do it. And that's also building markets in order to try to get more establishments and venues in the state using our local foods and selling it to the consumers. So just to get a feeling for the room, where does everybody fit? Do we have growers? Okay, mostly growers. Anybody doing any processing of any sorts? Awesome. So do you do that processing by yourself, or do you outsource that? You need somebody else to do, because it's meat processing, so you might do that at home, you outsource that to somebody else. How many do it at home? Okay, so almost everybody. Anybody outsource? Okay, wow, okay. Anybody doing any sort of aggregating, bringing things together? Okay, what kind are you doing? Okay, that's okay. So the other thing with aggregation, the way that we look at it too, and I thought this, but I didn't say it when we were out there, is you might aggregate because you're making salsa and you have tomatoes, but you need onions and peppers. And so you might get that from another grower and bring it in and be able to provide a market to them and bring some product together to make a single product. So, all right. So what we're going to talk about first is, as you're looking at your farm and moving from, and it's, I'm going to go back one more time to the marketing. How are we marketing? You're doing your farming, you're making some value-added type of things. Farmers markets, CSAs, any retail, wholesale type things? Okay, so some of that. Okay, so we're going to start off by thinking about, as we have our farm and we're producers, we know how to do that, and we're awesome at that. And to me, producers are some of the best business people in the world because of all the different layers of stuff that you have to have. But once you move into that food sector, into the value added, it kind of pulls you into another layer of things that maybe it might be a little bit foreign. There might be some extra things that you need to look at, think about to either start up or operate that business. So we're going to go through some like kind of thought patterns about looking at migrating in from just our farming producer organization into food entity, because they're not going to all be businesses, so we call it an entity or a venture or something like that. So first of all, we talk a little bit, think about what is the motivation? Why do I even want to do this? Why am I thinking about just not producing and feeding myself, maybe tossing some to the neighbors or whatever? Why am I thinking about moving to another level? So some of that goes into, is it a necessity? Do I need to diversify? Do I need another income stream in order to make my farm profitable? Is it just because I have a passion for local food and I want to provide the community with healthy foodstuffs? So why to me would I be thinking about moving into this other venture, moving or expanding my current venture? And then how much commitment do I want to have? Do I want to make it a hobby? Do I just want it to be a sideline because I also work in town? Or do I want to, maybe that's where I start, but my overall goal is to make this a full-time job and to be able to do this 100% of the time, and again, create this entity that will support the expenses of being able to make this a full-time job. So that's something to think about. And then the wants. Again, do I want to look at my bottom line? Do I need to use this as a way to strengthen my bottom line, or even make my bottom line from a negative to a positive? Do I maybe eventually want to pay myself for the hours that I'm putting in on all of this because I'm doing it all for free? In the grant world, we call that in kind, so I use that a lot. But it's like you're just donating your time, and all of your expenses go to just paying the bills, and you really aren't gaining anything yourself. So maybe this is a way to think through things and be able to help that bottom line a little bit. Contributions. Who am I and what do I have to contribute? I want to do this, I think it's something or whatever, but what is it about me or my family that will make this fly? And what is it about me and my family? What are the characteristics that we have and the skill sets that we have to help guide us into thinking about what kind of business we should have? Maybe if I don't know about anybody else, I hate numbers. So maybe if, I'm not going to be doing the books, but maybe Joe, son Joe or whatever, will do the books because he does like numbers. He didn't inherit that from me, but, look, what are our skill sets? And to help us decide what we want to do. And then also, as we go through, to make sure that we have all of the needs of the business addressed, either internally or somebody from the outside to help us fill all the spaces of things that we need. So as we talk about thinking through things, we put it together in a process. Discovery, developing the concept, resourcing, trying to figure out where our needs, or how to fit our needs, and then actualization, kind of launching it, and then harvesting is once we've launched. So we'll go through each of these in a little bit more detail. So our discovery phase is, again, just in the business world, this would be called your feasibility assessment. You're looking at whether or not this is going to fly. So you're trying to think about all the different pieces, and do I have an answer for it? Do I not have an answer for it? Is my answer yes, and so it's okay, we can go ahead? Is my answer no? So what I call it is I'm going down the road and I have to back up and go down another road to try to find an answer that's right. and keep on doing that a lot in some cases for certain things until you find a correct answer, or maybe that it's not going to fly at all. So now we have to back up and even think of a new venture, a new idea or whatever, because this one's just not going to work. So generating the ideas. Again, this is what are the attributes of my farm? What are the attributes of our family members that we have, the skill sets that we can bring, so that we can start thinking about what we want to do. I tend to use salsa a lot for ideas, so we'll just use salsa. So we grow tomatoes, and so yeah, that's a plus, but our garden space isn't very big, so that's a minus. So what do we do about that? Do we have more land that we can do? If we till up some more, do we have enough water? Do we have the things that we need? Are we going to have storage for when we harvest them and things like that? So we got to look at what is there for the farm, and then again, personally, with all of those different steps, who's going to handle them? Do we have the skill sets? Is there training? If we don't have the skill sets, is there training out there that can teach us? Through SPA has things, the SCSU has things, NRCS has things, so there's a lot of different resources. Is there ways that we can train ourselves if we don't have those skill sets? The markets, how many love marketing? Seriously? You guys need counseling. That is what we find the most intimidating and the hardest thing for most producers, because again, we're on our farm, we're doing our thing, and we're happy there, and now we have to go look at somebody in the face, and we have to try to tell them that we've got something good that they want, and it's hard. And so, but there's ways to make it a little bit easier. And when we're looking at what are we going to do, the things that your funding sources don't like is that you can't show them that you have a market. Because if you can't show that you have a market, you know what they think? They think all they're going to do is come back and they're going to want money to build more storage, because all they're doing is processing stuff and putting it in storage rather than selling it. And if you don't sell it, you don't have income. So you have to be able to have a market in place. So we've had people do things like conduct surveys, and it doesn't have to be formal, it doesn't have to be a nationwide survey monkey or anything like that. It can be as simple as, we had a gentleman that was going to do some branded pork, and so he went to the sale barn and he asked people, would you buy local pork? What price would you buy it at? How much would you buy a year and stuff, and just did an informal survey there. We have farm shows. You could just informally ask people there. You could maybe go to the grocery store and look at your competition, see what's out there, what's on the shelves that is being, that the stores want, that the stores are selling, so that you know, have an idea of what types of things are out there now. So there's different ways that are not real intimidating. You can go Google. There's a lot of things out there now that you can see. You can Google competition. You can Google local foods, and you can look. You can get pricing there, see what other people are charging. AMS, USDA Ag Marketing Services, does track local food pricing, and you can do. It's a lot of information, so it's a little bit hard when you first get in there to kind of see how to filter it, but you can filter it and get to pricing for a lot of the different local food things. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of gain some insight about what the market might be to help you figure out what it is to sell, what your price points might be, and volumes.
I talked to local restaurants and asked them what they were buying from their sellers, like the big food companies.
Good idea. And that's a good point too. Go directly to, because then maybe you've built a market right there. Maybe your survey turns into a customer. And if you can go and give the face, I would say this, have your presentation in order so that you come up professional and whatever, and don't come up like I would and be going like I have this or whatever, because then they're going to be like whatever. But if you can go in and maybe spend a little money on a brochure or a business card or whatever, or we can make a lot of that stuff ourselves anymore, and go make a presentation, ask them, and then let them know that you might not be ready right now, but you're developing this, and if they would be interested, you would be happy to be a supplier to them. And then the other thing you can do with that is you can start getting volume, because you could ask them, you know, how many pork chops are you going to use in a week, if that's what they want or whatever. And so that can help guide you a little bit on what that customer might take, and then it might give you a little bit of intelligence if you're going to go to the next restaurant down the road or whatever, so that you have a little bit of knowledge and can speak a little better to them. So awesome. So by the time you've kind of done with this, and I'll say this, we're in business development, and so we're supposed to have papers, and we're supposed to have business plans this thick and everything like that. You don't need that. We do bullet points, we're little paragraphs. All you need to do is make sure that you have the information that you need, so that this is the way that I put it is that you want to have your oh shit on paper rather than once you open your doors. And by walking through the process and doing it, you find a lot of those problems and can solve them on paper before you're an operating business and then trip up because of it. And the other thing is, maybe it doesn't need to be all written down. As we work with people, I myself have it on this sheet of paper, I have it on a napkin, I have it over wherever, but we've thought through it and we've worked through the process, and we don't formally need it written down, but as long as we've answered the questions and have it can be on several different pieces of paper and stuff anyway, except for make it a little bit nicer if you do need to take it to the bank. So after we do that, we get to a go, no-go is what we call it. So we've vetted the idea, and we've gone down the road, we've backed up, and we went down a different road, and we've got our questions answered, and we feel like we can do this. We feel like we've got enough space, we've got enough tomatoes, we can add some onions over there, we can go to the neighbor and get some peppers, we've got our kitchen licensed enough so that we can make the salsa in our kitchen, and everything is set, and so we feel it's a go. Or we go to the point where we have got everything in place, but there is no kitchen in the area to make it. And so we can't make salsa. So now we have to back up and we have to rethink. And can we rethink, and do we want to do something else? Do we want to just sell fresh? Do we want to sell frozen tomatoes to the school? What do we want to do? Or is this just not going to fly right now and we need to sit back and kind of rethink and then figure something else out later? And what we say is a no-go is not a bad thing. Sometimes it just doesn't work. And again, if you figure that out on paper before you put a bunch of money into launching something, or you have a bunch of beef packaged up at the locker plant and you have nowhere to go with it or whatever, you've figured that out before you've spent a bunch of money and time in real life, so that you can rethink things and try to make a go of it another way, or like I said, just sit it out for a while. Make sense? Any questions or any comments or anything? So now that we're a go, we're going to think a little bit about how do we organize our venture. So in order to do that, we have to have a name and a brand. And again, this doesn't have to be a Coca-Cola brand or anything like that. What you just want is something so that people can identify with you, so that they know that it's your product. They know that it has the information on it, so they can come back to you. And again, you've kind of got that little professional look about yourself so that you can entice restaurants and maybe retail and whatever to buy from you if that's where you're going. Even at a farmer's market, if you can have a little banner that shows it, who you are and what you are, and the branding tells your story. And again, maybe your story is just by mouth, direct at the farmer's market, so people get to know you. People like their food story now. So maybe it's just that one-on-one there, but you've kind of thought about your story to tell them where their food came from, that you talk about your farm, talk about the things that people want to know about their food nowadays. They just want to understand where it came from. They want to know, that you cared for those tomatoes, that your little lamb was a pet or whatever. So you just got to be able to figure out how to tell your story. And different levels for your different markets. So just keep that in mind too, that if you're, again, farmers market direct, CSA, if you've got some sort of a bag or a box for your CSA, can you get a stamp, or can you just put your name on the bag or something, again, just to professionalize it up a little bit or whatever. And then differentiate yourself. So what is it about you, if they're looking at you compared to somebody else, what is it about you that you can put that carrot in front of them so that they are attracted to you maybe a little bit more than your competition? And that might take a little bit of thinking. Maybe it's a little bit hard, but it might be grass-fed, it might be maybe it's homemade because it's in your kitchen and everything else is done, on the processing line or whatever. So just think out of the box and think back again to your passion. Your passion and why you did this can maybe trigger some thoughts about what is going to make it meaningful to your customer and entice them to spend their money with you. If it was a passion of yours, then that can transfer over to your customer in how you're presenting yourself to them. Where are you going to locate and what's your coverage? So are you going to do it off the farm? Can you do everything there? Your farm stand, can that all be there and everything? Or are you going to be off-site? If maybe it's the farmer's market, maybe you can process at home, maybe you have to go off-site to process and things like that. So decide where everything is going to be, own or rent. Maybe you need to rent space. There's some things that we've been talking about as TA providers and stuff about where you might be able to process. And if there's not a commercial kitchen, maybe it's talking to your senior center, to your schools, to the restaurants, and trying to see if you can rent space there on their off times so that you can not have to worry about setting up your own kitchen, getting all licensed and everything, but that you can use vacant space, rent vacant space while it's not being used. And they might like that. They can make an extra buck or two or whatever too. So really thinking through where you are, your service area. What we try to say when you're looking at your market is putting it in tiers. And your first tier, and it depends on how big you want to be again, but your first tier might be just 10 miles from you. I'm just going to focus on marketing to that area. My second tier, I'm going to go 100 miles, and my third tier, I'm going to go western South Dakota or something. So look at those tiers. Or you might look at your tiers as, I'm going to start out with farmers markets, and I'm just going to get this down. I'm going to figure out how to work with the customers. I'm going to do this. Then I'm going to go to a restaurant, and I'm going to take that step. So it might be from direct sales to retail sales or things like that. So look at it as in tiers and how you're going to plan to grow that market area. Then your blueprint. What are you going to offer? So when you were thinking all through this, we talked about salsa. Was it just salsa, or were you going to have spaghetti sauce also? And maybe because you have onions, you're going to sell for bloomin' onions or whatever. So what is your product line going to be? Also, what are services? A lot of people might not have services. It might just be product, but maybe a service is delivery. So that's not a product, but that's another perk or whatever that you can offer your customers. Maybe somebody else doesn't if you're doing the right kind of sales. So identify what your products and your services are going to be, because down the road, you're going to have to put dollar signs with those. So think about what it is, and you're going to have to put time, you're going to have to put bodies and everything with all this. So know what your products and services are going to be. And then your roadmap. So a lot of what we do in South Dakota with local foods, with the produce and stuff, is seasonal. So that is something to take into consideration when you're looking at your financials, when you're looking at when you spend money, when your money comes in. You got to kind of reconcile that if you're seasonal. If you're year-round with some meats and stuff like that, which is more, or if you're hydroponics, got some greenhouse growing or whatever, then you're going to have income streams possibly and expenses all year. So it's important to understand if there's seasonality year-round for your operations, your sales, your processing, all of that. Ownership, key positions, resources, and professional services. So this is who is going to, the bodies that are there to help you with your business. So it starts with probably you as owners. And it, you know, again, back to, is it the family? Is it one of us? Is it all of us? What skill sets are there? And how much time do we have to dedicate to this? Is it just a couple hours a week, or is it full-time or whatever? And whatever you think it is, add another 40 hours to it, because that's probably what it's gonna be. So you don't wanna have a gap in services, because if you can't provide to your customers what you said, you're gonna lose them. So this is important to understand what commitment, what time commitment you have available realistically to be able to launch and operate this at a scalable size to meet your needs. And again, maybe you start small, but your goal is to do more. So you start at just 10 hours a week, but by year 2, you got that up to 15 hours a week. So you kind of got a plan in place to grow that and put more time into it. Worker positions, do you need outside help? And if you do, where do you get it? Because that's kind of tricky nowadays, but if you do, because it's hard to get, it's really something to think about. And it's something to think about, again, whether those people have automatically have the skill sets that you need, or whether there's going to have to be training for that. You're going to have to look at having enough money in your income to be able to pay for them, and whether they're part-time or full-time, whether you got benefits or whatever. Most of it is probably going to be part-time, especially when you're starting out smaller scale, so that makes it easier. Support systems, what we like to do when we're doing business plans is identify who they are, and then in the plan be able to tell the bank, the reader, that we do have outside people that we're reliant on, because then they know that that if we have moments of we don't know what to do, or we have, oh my gosh, there's bugs in my tomatoes and I have no idea what we could lose our whole crop or whatever. If we say that we work with SDSU Extension and they're able to help us with our production issues and things like that, or we're part of the Specialty Producers Association, and you know what, they have trainings all the time, and we can call them up and they can refer us to somebody, so that we have these the supports net for us that's out there. We've identified it, we know who they are, to tell others that we've got that, and also for ourselves, so that when we have our oh my gosh moments, that we have somebody to dial up. Then outsourcing, accounting, if you want to do your own books, that's fine, or if you want to do the accountant, that's even better, or you might be able to do your own books, but you need them for taxes. Identify who they are. Legal, you may not need, you might need them to structure a legal entity. Or if you get into maybe going into institutions, you might want them to look at a contract before you sign it, to help you make sure that you're covered, to help make sure that you understand what your responsibilities are, so that you don't accidentally slip up on something and have a huge problem. So legal, I mean, it's not that maybe they're on quick dial, but you have somebody and you have a phone number to call if you need some support services from them. Any other thoughts or questions there? Okay, so startup stuff. So again, it depends on your organization, your farming organization, and then what you want to do with your business. We usually recommend that if you're doing foods, that you create another entity. And it is another entity, and there's some separation of things, but the separation is probably good. We know a lot of people are sue happy. And if they happen to get sick, whether it's off of my salsa or it's not off of my salsa, but they come after me and I don't have a separate entity, they can take the whole farm. Where if I have a separate LLC for my food business as opposed to my food production, they have to stop at the food company, which is still, they're taking stuff away, but at least you're not losing your livelihood. So we recommend that you think about taking or forming a different entity just to protect yourself in the event of something that has gone amok. I mean, it might not be intentional, it might whatever, but if somebody falls down at your farm and breaks a leg and claims lifelong disability or something, you're again protected maybe on the food side as opposed to the whole farming side. So just something to think about with that. So as you do that, if you start hiring people, an EIN. Does anybody have an EIN? Do you have? Yeah. So if you have a business, if you have employees, you have to have an EIN. What is it? A tax ID number that from the IRS. And if you have a business, you probably need that EIN to open a bank account. So you would need to get that first. And you just go online and do it. It's a free service, and I think it just bings it right to you. So you've got it, and then you can go get a bank account. Secretary of State, if you're going to incorporate a business, again, to keep it separate from the farm, they have templates there that will give you a little bylaws and everything. Again, pretty simple to just form a business. It's maybe $50 to form it. Yeah, and then $50 a year to do an annual report. So it's a little bit of an expense, but again, to have that might be okay. Department of Revenue, for any sales tax or anything that you might have, talk to them to, again, make sure that you're covered. We found that the badge flippers, sometimes it's kind of intimidating to go talk to them and stuff too, but really, if you just lay it on the line and tell them ahead of time, you've probably got a friend and you probably have accurate information that is going to keep you from having them flip their badge at you. And so it's probably good to just make that connection. And Revenue has offices, area offices around the state and stuff, so it makes it pretty easy to either call them or stop in and see them too. Any licenses, permits, or registrations that you might need for any of your production with its livestock, any licensing, again, for your kitchens, anything like that. Just make sure that you've thought through those. Maybe, again, you've had some conversations with resources if you're not for sure what that might entail, so that you can do as good a job as you can on the front end, making sure that those are all in place. If you're doing dairy processing, you need to be talking to the state to get your license before you open up and everything like that. So just, again, either do some research that you know what they are and have them in place so that you're covered. Insurance is something that is kind of tricky. It's difficult, and we're still trying to search for companies that are maybe more friendly towards small scale food companies. We work with some biotech people and stuff that it's like people aren't used to, their companies aren't used to that. It's small. How do you do that? Where do you go for that? So we're still trying to find resources that can maybe be a good connect for people to do that, because again, if you're handling food and stuff, it might not be under your general coverage of everything that you have. Or if you have people coming to your farm, you may not be covered on that. And so it's something, again, to upfront talk to them and find out if your current provider can be a resource, or if you need to go find someplace else before something happens and you find out you're not covered. Yes?
We have liability insurance for a farm insurance for a farm, but I got separate insurance, which was a little hard to find for my company because I sell food and value-added stuff. So it was helpful that I took the GAP training, Good Agricultural Practices, because they wanted, the company wants to know if you're, safe. So just, but I did find one through my local insurance at the bank.
Oh, awesome. Okay. And that's a good point too, back to the licensing and stuff. There's GAP, which is kind of hard to get. We don't have a GAP certifier in the state, so that can be kind of difficult. But there's Safe Serve through SDSU. You can do that and stuff too. So there's things that you could do.
The cottage food law course is out there now.
Okay.
To take too. So.
Yeah, so if there's things out there in trainings that you can help yourself be more in tune to things, that would be good too. And some of that, again, is just resources. Just call up SDSU and get to the right place and whatever. They'll guide you around, or SPA or us or whatever. We can help out. Trademark, copyright, and patent is probably something that, if you're going bigger or whatever, if my salsa recipe, it's like really awesome and I don't want somebody to steal it from me, then I might trademark it, or I might trademark my brand because it's pretty cool and I don't want anybody, like taking a piece of it or whatever. But overall, you're probably sitting pretty good without adding that to your plate right off, unless, again, you have something that's more secret or that you want to hang tight on. Resourcing. So we've kind of talked a little bit about some of these and the other ones, but this is just really So we did the feasibility. That last step was kind of the business plan. Now we're actually getting ready to like put everything together. So we have to, are we going to have a structure or are we not going to have a structure? And that's something too that I guess we didn't talk about back there that I was thought about before. When we're talking about ownership, that can be several different things too. It could just be me as I'm just doing this, and Mr. he can just be over there. I'm doing the food business and I'm the only one that's doing it, and so I'm just the individual. It could be the family. It could be that because we're using the tomatoes and the onions from the neighbors, that we're going to come together and we're actually going to form a company, and the three of us are going to joint venture into an LLC. We formed this partnership. Now we've got more equity because we've got three of us putting money in. We've got more product. We've got more experience. We got bigger volumes. We can go to better markets and things like that. So maybe bringing in together. The other thing is maybe by doing that, we can stay focused. I'm going to stay focused and grow the best tomatoes I can, and they're going to focus on the onions and grow the best onions, and we don't have to worry about having the knowledge of the production of both of them. The other thing is now we've cut down our competition maybe because the three of us are marketing together rather than separately. So instead of competing with each other, we're going to the market together. And so that's something to think about again, especially as we're getting more and more local foods. You know, and that goes into the aggregation too, as I think I'm going off course. My ADHD is kicking in here. But if we're going to go into aggregation and stuff, do we want a brand or do we just want to be an ingredient? Do we just want to be aggregating and into a bigger thing where we pool together and we all are making the South Dakota whatever product? So there's different ways at looking at that too. So whatever our ownership, individual, partners, co-op, we can look at it differently, again, maybe a little broader scope than just what's on my farm. Funding, again, the equity is a lot anymore. It used to be that we could get away with maybe 15-20% equity, and now we're having to put in like about 50% on projects. So 50% of the cash has to come from the owner, and then the bank will look at the other portion. So again, do I have the cash to do that? Do I need to dial up some friends? Do I need to dial up mom and dad and play favorite child status and get some money from them to help me out? Do I find an investor? How am I going to come up with that equity to do what I want to do? And again, if we're small, it might not be as big a deal as if we go a little bit larger. But even small, this can be kind of an investment by the time you get the whole thing put together. So even as small, we might need to look at where is our money going to come from, even if we need the bank to put up a building or working capital or whatever. The workers, we kind of talked about that before. Just what is our commitment as owners? If we need employees, who are they? Do they have the skill sets? Do we need training? What are our expectations there? Do we need them full-time? Do we need them part-time? Do we need full-time in order to get an employee, or can we get part-time? And maybe they work part-time in the food side, and maybe there's something else on the farm or something they can do otherwise. So just kind of assessing what that is. Yes?
So my wife and I, we raise most of our own food, and we're kind of expanding. We put up a high tunnel, we want to get more, but we want to possibly, sell some local stuff, maybe some cut flowers, so, no market stuff or anything, but, so we want to offset, some of the costs and be able to deduct some of the costs. What's the form of company, LLC, what's the right way for us to go with?
Some of this might be a tax thing, especially if you're a farm. So maybe talk to you.
We both work in town, so.
Okay, so this is a total separate. With that, especially with off-farm income and stuff, that might be a tax. Talk to your tax accountant or whatever and ask him what would make the most sense for it. Lots of times they're good guiders on that. Thank you for bringing it up, because lots of times you could ask them, how does this fit in with what we're doing otherwise and everything like that. So, the other thing with the funding, Yeah, I'm going to say that here. So there are other programs. There's programs out there, regional, local economic development that can give you low interest loans. Right now, there is a lot of food money through USDA. Like, there's a lot of programs out there. So there's farmers market programs. There's local food promotion through ag marketing services. There's the value-added producer grant, which is open right now, that the whole goal of that is to take the producer and move you from raising a commodity, which is your tomatoes, your grapes, your cattle, and pull you through the value-added chain. So they want you to own that product from production all the way through marketing. And then you can either do a planning grant, which you can hire a consultant to put together a feasibility study, business or marketing plan, or you can do a working capital, and that working capital can be 1 to 3 years, and it can go up to $250,000 grant, and you match $250,000, so you can have a $500,000 project over 3 years, and it can pay for almost every move you make. So any check you would be writing in your value-added business, it will almost likely pay for that. It will not pay family employees, and you can't do equipment and building and stuff, but your processing, your labels, your marketing, all that kind of stuff can be covered under that. It's an awesome program. It is a little tedious, and your application is a little bit big, but it is awesome. And while it's open now, you really kind of want to I don't know that you want to try to get a big one in right now, but the other thing is for the working capital, there's like a full-fledged $250,000. There's also a streamlined application, which is $50,000 or less, which is a little bit easier, but you still really need to have things in place, because you need to know how many pounds of tomatoes you're going to use, and how many, gallons of salsa you're going to make. You have to know how much extra profitability you're going to gain by selling your tomatoes as salsa rather than tomatoes and stuff. So it is tedious, but the other thing is, again, it does pull you through really thinking about your business and where you're going to go over the next 3 years, and be able to have a really solid plan in place by the time you're done with that application. So, and that's something that we help with. And so if there's something that you want to talk about to see if you'd be eligible or whatever, let us know and we can try to help you out. And again, if it's not this year, it might be helping you to be positioned for next year, because it is only announced one time a year. So you kind of got to be ready for it, but usually it's this time of year that they open it, and it's usually due like in April, May-ish. And so we can try to help you position for that. There is also right now, there's 2 other programs. Regional Food Business Center, which is North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota there's 12 of these food centers around the United States. North Dakota, Minnesota, and South Dakota are in the North Central Regional Food Center. And so what we are doing is helping provide technical assistance to the food system. This is anywhere from a producer all the way through distribution. And so SPA and us and the 6 planning districts are available to help producers, companies, processing, aggregation, really try to it's a 5-year program, so we're really looking at how we can grow the number of producers that we have, so we have a greater volume of food, we can aggregate, we can move that food, we can get it into the marketplace, and we can just really build our food system while we have this available. Another sister to that is the Regional Food Infrastructure System, which our state Department of Ag and Natural Resources has available. And basically that is an infrastructure grant. So they got money and they're going to sub-award that for infrastructure. And it's a little bit problematic because it's like right now, because it's a 3-year program. So they had to open it up so that they could get it open and let people have time to execute their projects over the 3 years. So it's due March 10th. And so you can either do an equipment only So if you need a piece of, if you need equipment, so this starts getting pretty fragmented.
Post-harvest.
Yes,
pre-delivery.
yeah, so it is. It's like the mid-tier food system. So it's processing, distribution, not even marketing, right? It's just processing, distribution, and aggregation. And so if you need a vehicle to transport your stuff to market, if you need a cooler, if you need a processing line, that stuff would be eligible, but it gets a little bit tricky because equipment is anything $5,000 or more that can be depreciable. And so the equipment only is a minimum of $10,000, zero match, so it's like a free equipment, but $10,000 minimum, which is, I mean, it's good money, but some of us don't need $10,000 worth of equipment. We need $2,000, so we don't qualify because our equipment that's supplies. If it's under $5,000, it's supplies. If it's over $5,000, it's equipment. So now I have a $5,000 cooler, but the minimum is $10,000. So I have to buy 2 coolers, or I have to find something else because the other trick of it is if it's multiple pieces of equipment, they have to be somehow integrated. So I can't get a slicer, dicer, ultimate to like my tomatoes are gonna be all even and everything over there and get a transportation vehicle over here because they're not interconnected. I have to have my all-in-one salsa maker because my slicer dicer is not gonna be $5,000. So I'm gonna have this all-in-one salsa making machine that costs $6,000.20 in order to qualify for that. And then I'm gonna have something else that it costs $5,000, so I'm gonna have an $11,000 project. So that's probably a lot of word salad right there. But again, it could be an awesome resource for you if you can fit that criteria. The other one is minimum $100,000, but it's 50-50 match. And so your minimum project is $200,000, but you can go up way higher than that if you want to. There's $3.17 million or something like that available for this one-time application period. And so you could go for, I am going to start a commercial kitchen, and I'm going to use this to set up my commercial kitchen. So you could put in a $350,000 grant to set up your commercial kitchen under the bigger infrastructure program. So planning districts are helping on that. We've got some other things going on, so we're answering questions and doing what we can too, but or the Ag and Natural Resources are the ones that have it too. It's kind of, it's a new program and stuff, and so as things come up, they're kind of making it up as they go, if you will, because they've never done it before either. And so as they hear from producers doing different things, it's like, oh, well, we got to figure that out. So there's a little bit there of figuring things out, but it's kind of a lot to put together. You got to have quotes for your equipment and stuff like that. But it is online. If you go to South Dakota Ag and Natural Resources, there is a RFSI page where there's all the documents and everything there that you can download for that. Actualization, we're launching. We've gone through all this and we're live. And so now it's just like, we gotta operate our business. So management, what are we gonna do? Again, maybe this is a little bit different. We manage our farms, but this might be a little bit different hat in our management role, that we need to look at things a little bit different. We have outside customers we need to deal with. Maybe, again, we need to rely on somebody else, and you know, they got hail on their onions, and well, onions, that might not matter, I don't know. They got hail on their tomatoes. I haven't even had time to put a garden in lately, so I don't know. You know, maybe that happened. And so as a manager now, I have to figure out how to handle this moment or have a plan in place. And so when that happens, that maybe I've already got a Rolodex that I can go to and fill in the gap or whatever. Operations, if we have other people, financials, and then planning for future. Promotion. How are we going to do that? Here's that marketing piece now that we have some initial customers, but how are we going to grow that? How are we going to keep that? Have our marketing plan? Are we going to have, yeah, like it says, grand opening, maybe to bring people, maybe if we're at a retail store or something, we do tastings. We have them help us with being able to have a days. One of the things we've done with the VAPG is we've had people that have dairy and meat products. We've gotten little freezers and wrapped them with their brand, and they set that in the store. So now they're out of the meat counter, they're at their own little place, they're drawing attention to themselves. There might be ways to do that with other things too, whether it's some sort of a case or whatever, just again to highlight, draw attention to you in the stores or whatever. Maybe that's even something for farmers markets or something to up your game a little bit and more from the guys or whatever, people are drawn to it. So just different ways of doing the marketing. Agritourism might be again something. There's agritourism classes that the state and SDSU have. If that's something that can integrate to help you if you're growing pumpkins or something like that, that might be something to look at too. Insurance and different things about having people on your farm.
I would encourage you to get really creative with this part. One of the things I suggest is really find community partners. Reach out to your local area, Chamber of Commerce. They might be able to help you put on some of these grand openings and host different events, help you with different social media things. And nothing is too small. You can promote every time you're launching a product or every time you have a new vendor in your farm store or any time that a new vegetable is ripe. So anything can be exciting enough to market it. Do you want to skip to the
I'm going to break my hip. Yes. Okay. That's not, should we do that or not?
Oh, do you want to go back and I'll explain?
Yes.
This link and QR code is access to a Google Drive that was created previously. It has some help from the Small Business Development Center, which Bob is a good contact if you're curious about that. It has just some different resources for more of a creating of the business plan. Cheri had mentioned that you can write things down on a napkin or have bullet points, and it doesn't need to be a super long document. But if you are planning to go to the bank and if you want it to be a long document, the Small Business Development Center has really great resources that can kind of guide you through that. On Specialty Producers YouTube channel, we also have the previous business development class recorded, so you can kind of Bob walks everyone through it, and you can kind of look at the outline and listen to him talk about it, and it'll kind of walk you through. Yeah, and if you have any questions about anything you find in there, feel free to reach out.
How are we doing on time?
We've got about 7 minutes left.
Okay.
So the last few minutes, you can ask questions one-on-one or group, and then I'm going to pass around a sheet. If you want to put your email on it for a post survey, reaching out with different aggregation opportunities, and meetings that might be of interest to you, I will do so. And yeah, for the last few minutes, I'm also going to pass out some workbooks that you can use. It's different than the Small Business Development Center guide, but it's kind of a workbook.
Is the presentation given today available, or is it on Google Drive?
Yeah, I think they're available from here, and then we'll put that on the Google Drive too, and then we'll kind of populate that Google Drive with things along the way too. So maybe check back there, and if there's different things. And like she said, there's different business plans there and stuff. Some of it, there's templates out there. Some of it is just getting comfortable with what works for you. I know we've like blown apart the business plan and kind of really structured it for value-added ag because it's a little bit different than the business. I worked at the economic development office too, and it's like the people next door were doing call centers. All they need is a cubicle and a phone plug-in, and it's like, oh my gosh, we need feedstock, we need transportation, we need processing and all this stuff. So you might have to think a little bit differently in some of the templates, but at least the foundation is there for you to work with. Are there any other thoughts or questions or things that maybe we didn't cover or that it like spurred a thought or a comment that you might have? Yeah.
So do you do like one-on-one consulting with farms or producers who want to add a business, or how does that work for the FADIC?
Yeah, so that's what this center does, and we, thank you USDA, we work off of a grant, and so we are able to provide our services for free. We have members that help us with our funding, and then we use actually we're using like 8 USDA grants right now. So we can provide technical assistance to help. And so we'll help you kind of vet and then again be as formal or informal as we need to be on those documents. And again, what we've morphed into being able to try to help the client with what the needs are. So again, we help with writing applications, we help with the reporting, the draws, and everything like that too. So we just try to be there for whatever you need, or to be able to pull in other resources so we don't duplicate what's out there, but to be helpful for what you need. Yes?
Do you guys have a table out here today?
We don't, but I'm kind of hovering with specialty. We're on their board, so we're kind of hovering there, and I'll be around if you need something. So are you all you're ready, you're gonna do your businesses and you're gonna expand and you got this? It is, my motto is no is not an option, because what I have found is that this takes way longer than you ever thought it would, and there's way more backups and going down the different road than you ever thought there was and everything, but there is ways of doing it, and it is, it's hard and whatever, but it, once you work through the process, you do have a pretty good business. I forget the numbers, but I think it's like, I don't know, 70% of our clients are still in business. So again, if you do this and have your moments ahead of it, it will position you to have a really good foundation to springboard off of. Yes?
So this is kind of a plug, but employment. So you have, if you're employing employees, just remember, like Department of Labor, the state, we have several resources that are free, of course, to any of you to help you with those employment wages, regulations, and so forth as well.
Thank you. That's a good one. We should put that up there. I'll tell my staff. That'd be neat. Yeah, that's a really good one. We should, especially now, because
Wage poster or any of that kind of stuff, you just reach out to your local office and they'll send it out to you.
perfect. Thank you. All right. Did you guys excel and we're done early?
Was there another code on there about local production? I maybe missed it when I was looking down. Like you had to do the drive, whatever.
Oh, no, there was just one.
Local food, oh, that was the one, okay. You bet.
Is there something specific you're looking on at
Really
resources?
broad,
He-
just trying to get information and get really general information to other people, so.
You know, that I'm thinking that might be something we could put out there, like just some general links, like I mentioned with AMS to USDA to their programs, and we might just have a resource document out there that we can just keep adding to and whatever. That might be a good thing to put out there. Or even state organizations and resources and whatever. We'll get right on that. Thank you.